there, you who are watching. You can see I'm sitting in a meeting room at the Oslomet Metropolitan University. The sun is coming in. It is spring, beautiful weather out, soon summer in Norway. I am going to go through some of the what I've learned during this project OnLife, and I'm going to sum it up into three categories or three types of learnings, or whatever you call it in English. My script here is in Norwegian, so I try to translate it as we go on. Of course, I'm a storyteller, so I should be able to improvise based on a script. You can see here that I'm having brought a spice with me. It is open. I think it's called ginger in English, ingefær in Norwegian, and spice is some of the things which were very effective when you work in a web-based space. When you have your participants sitting on the other screens and everybody has spice. Yes, it smells. You can do different things with spice, which I will tip you about during this little video to sum up our learning experience. I've been running different kind of pilots in OnLife, 2 kind of workshops and 1 performance. And I can sum up my experience into these categories: time, place and community. Time first. Considering time, you have to sort of balance between having a lot of activities but also room for talk and breaks. Myself, I have a tendency to plan too much activities in a course or a workshop, for instance. But it is important, at least I learned, it's important to give space for the participants to talk and share their experiences. So you have to make sure that when you're running a workshop or a performance, make sure that, because you're so distanced in the web-based space, make sure that you give space for the audience or the participants. In the performance, for instance, which we gave the participants tasks to do some different things during the performance, so they could connect to the story which was told. So if you give the participants space, they are able to have ownership in what is happening, and they give you feedback which will further develop you during the workshop or the performance. Also, we have to remember that time is both objective, but it's also personal experience, so we experience time different. In a performance, when you are in a physical performance, for instance, and you are on stage, you who are on the stage, you will experience the time different from what the audience will experience. So be aware on how you construct time, both in the planning and in the workshop or the performance itself. Now back to the spice. One task is to smell the spice and write down all the association you get when you smell the spice. That could be one task. And then you can share the experience with the others in the workshop. The reason for why I am so fascinated by spice is because there's something very common in spice. Everybody uses spice. So everybody can relate to it. But also when you are in a web-based space, you need to work on the other senses, which is not so obvious in a web-based space, like smell, for instance. And smelling spice give you association which wakes up memories. So one task is to smell the spice. Now back to place as the second category. Most of us during the pandemic, for instance, or during a digital practice is at home, and we have to be aware of that. It can be very vulnerable to be at home because home is intimate. You have your intimacy there, it's private there. So you must think when you run a workshop, both be aware of the participants' relation to their home, but also your own relation. How do you set up the space, the physical space where you have your digital practice? And there is a connection between how you set up your space and the space, the web-based space. So set it up. And also you can vary during the workshop in the space. You can turn around or ask the audience or the participants to walk in their home. And the good thing about using home is that the home has a lot of memories. It's a lot of generations in a home because of the photos and things you have inherited, which can be used for storytelling. And also you can vary between looking into the screen like I'm looking now, or looking into the camera, which the camera is here, there the camera is, to give a sense of variation or a flow in both the performance and the workshop. Also remember light. Light is essential in the web-based space. Too poor light gives kind of a bad resolution in the videos in the web-based space. And also encourage the participants to not blur out the background, for instance, but make the space they want to work in so they feel more secure. And also considering space, also remember to use the breakout rooms, for instance in Zoom, where they are in smaller groups and it's easier for them to talk while they are in a smaller group. Easier for the participants to probably share their experiences. Another task with Spice is to make a story, but the backward story, the reversed story, if I can say it in that way. The reversed story meaning that you start the story with the spice you're having in your hand. And how did you get that into your hand? Well, you picked it out from a box where you have collected the spices. Or how did it end up your home? Well, it was standing in a shelf in a shop. And how did it get to the... So all the way back to the beginning where someone... picked out this spice from a plant or something. And of course it's an imagined story, you make it up. Community. It is essential for having a good workshop or performance to be able to create a community in the web-based space, as in real life. Especially when you have workshops with storytelling where you're going to share stories. The community helps to trigger stories, but also to create a safe place. One thing you can do is to have, if the workshop, for instance, is over different sessions, you can always have a check-in and check-out. So when people enter the workshop, they are checking in, telling shortly how they are doing, and when the workshop is ended, they can have a check-out, telling shortly how they are doing now. That's one way of creating community, because in a check-in and check-out you make sure that all the participants are able to speak during the workshop. And of course another thing, as I already mentioned, is to use the breakout rooms, creating smaller groups, which is easier for them to talk to each other and share, and not in a big group if you have a big group. One thing I did, which I find very effective, is that because my workshops was over different sessions, spread over different weeks, I made sure to communicate with the participants in between. I've sent them an email with different tasks they could do during the in between time between sessions, but also you could create a Facebook group where they can communicate with each other, etc. So yes, creating a community. So time, space, and creating a community. Now the last task you can do with your spice is to imagine what kind of story would the story about the spice be if the spice was the main character in a story or a main plot in the story. Would it be a tragedy? Would it be a comedy? Or would it be a crime story? Or a science fiction story, maybe. Maybe that's the most exciting thing these days, to create science fiction. Yes, I think this is all from me. It is towards an end of OnLife, and it's been very exciting to explore this. So thank you for watching and listening.